It's not just one dental practice and this is what I want to do and I restore smiles. Or no, it's about healthcare, because I think that's what's lost primarily in a lot of parts in this country, where you as an individual are not a patient, but you're a chart number. You're managed more than you're taken care of. And we strive to be different. We have, I like to believe that we have great personal relations with our patients, you know.
How long have you been in business?
Great question. 8 years. Um, but inherently, like I have a mind which is just like, I want to do business. I have an entrepreneur mind, right? So I'll try and figure stuff out. Um, but specifically to your question, when it comes to basic business sense, I'll divide it into two parts. One is your technical business related aspects to it, right? Unique to every business, that is what it is. But the one thing that's common is being a leader and having that vision. That I think is common across any business. You know, there are certain basic underlying principles that are applicable to any business, and depending on how you look at things, they change a little bit. But if you have the structural framework, you can replicate that across different businesses. There's nothing different to it.
It's called serial entrepreneur, huh? Once you have the
Once you have that
foundation,
foundation, you can just apply.
copy paste, copy
Yeah.
paste.
So like the way I break it down is, and this is not from me. This is I forget his name, Marcus Lemonis. He has this television show where he says that any business you can break it down into three parts, or you need three things for a successful business: people, processes, and product. Right? And you need all three to be successful. Product could be a service, could be a product itself, which is physical. People, of course, and then you should have the right process in place.
Yeah.
And that, I think, is a very basic formula that you can apply to any business.
Speaking of products, what's your product?
So I'm in the business of selling trust. Okay? Actually, it doesn't sound as good, but I'll go back. Background: I'm a dentist. I'm a medical provider. So that is day-to-day practice. I have a dental practice out in Virginia, in Annandale. But what I'm trying to build is something larger than just a dental practice. Okay. If I were to try and summarize it in one sentence, like my elevator pitch, if I meet Elon Musk, would be, I'm building the Mayo Clinic for dentistry. Okay, wherein under one roof you have clinical practice, you have research, and you have education,
Oh, wow.
which as an organization is run as a non-profit even after I'm dead. So it's something larger than
You
just,
got a real vision here.
yeah. It's not just one dental practice and this is what I want to do and I restore smiles. Or no, it's about healthcare, because I think that's what's lost primarily in a lot of parts in this country, where you as an individual are not a patient, but you're a chart number. You're managed more than you're taken care of. And we strive to be different. We have, I like to believe that we have great personal relations with our patients, you know. That's something that my dad taught me and I saw him do. So that's what I'm translating. Uh, and and the call to arms motto or logo is building trust in healthcare, because that's what's lost and that's what we're trying to build.
Why are you so passionate about this? Did something happen where you've not lost trust, but did something happen earlier in your career that you've created this big vision?
Nothing specific that happened to me, okay? But just looking at how healthcare is done around me, it's driven me to verbalize this vision and say that this is what we need and this is what we want to achieve. Because at the end of the day, the doctor-patient relationship is a very intimate relationship. Many doctors know more about an individual than their spouse knows about that individual, right?
Yeah.
And and that is how it should be. Um, it's about building that trust back. Like I see so many patients who are like, yeah, I went with this dentist and I didn't trust them. In the first appointment, as a doctor, if someone comes to you and they cannot trust you, you failed. It doesn't matter how good you are as a doctor. You have failed your duty, your oath that you've sworn, the Hippocrates oath. You failed all of that right up front. So why are we putting ourselves, and by this I mean us providers and doctors, why are we putting ourselves in a position where our patients cannot trust us?
Why do you feel like that trust isn't happening after our first meeting?
I don't know, and it baffles me. It completely baffles me. I can make some assumptions based on what I've seen. Like I used to work in a corporate practice, right? Owned by a large corporation. They own like 800 dental practices across. So it was run not like a medical practice. It was run like if it was a McDonald's or like an FMCG company where you're trying to sell a product. And every day, at the end of the day, the office manager would sit with me and say, Doctor, here are your numbers. And it didn't make sense. I'm like, if today everyone walked in healthy, why do these numbers matter? Right? And I think maybe not doctors, but I'll say the organization loses perspective and makes it about the numbers on a day-to-day basis. And as it percolates down into the minds of the doctor, they are now thinking from that perspective, not from a perspective of, I want the best for my patient. Or, hey, you need this treatment, but it's not a necessity. You can sit on it for a year, you'll be okay. You know, that that is lost, right? So that's kind of one assumption where you're trying to meet a financial goal while delivering healthcare. And I think those are completely two opposite sides of the coin, and you cannot have both.
How do you solve that then? Because
It has to come from the doctor. The doctor has to put the patient's interest first, no questions asked. Whatever it is, even before their own interest, they have to put the patient's interest first.
I was just talking about this with another guest, and we were talking about the difference between being a salesperson versus being an advisor.
Exactly. Yes, and I think you hit it right on the head. You have to be the advisor for the patient. I tell my team in the practice, what are we doing here on a day-to-day basis? We are not doing dentistry. We are educating people. That is what you need to think of. Even my hygienists, I tell them, you're not selling dentistry. You're not doing cleanings or periodontal treatment. No, you are here every day to educate and to advise the patient. And if they want treatment, great, we can do it for you.
Yeah.
If you don't want treatment, great. You are advised, you know exactly what's going on, you know your next steps.
You don't sound like a typical dentist.
Thank you. I take it as a compliment. Thank you.
It was intended to be a compliment. Where did you get this type of mindset, training, influence?
I think it's not one place. I think it's people around me who've influenced me to be this way. Some of it I would attribute it to how I was brought up, what I've seen my father do. So my father is a physician. So part of it goes to my origin story of, as a kid, what I saw. And I think a large part of it goes to the last 3 years that I've focused on myself. I've read a lot of leadership books, a lot of in general how business should be. Combine that into a healthcare philosophy, you kind of evolve every day. For me, I evolve every day in the shower. That's where I get my bright ideas. So it's been an evolution. It's not been like one institute or one person who's influenced me. It's this process has been growing and evolving and maturing over the last 4 or 5 years.
Yeah.
Where the last year, I would say it's completely crystallized and become something that I can point to, that I can give to others, saying that this is your call of arms. This is a vision that you can take and run.
Wait, in 10 years, you're going to come back and be like, actually, it's evolved from.
From there, right? Yeah. Now it's across all medical, right?
So Speaking of origin story, do you mind touching on that just a little bit?
Yes, yeah. So my father is a physician, my mom's a dentist. I hail from India. I'm from Bombay. That's where I was born and brought up. And my parents, I mean, to someone over here, it sounds like, oh, both your parents are doctors. You must be well off. But it's very different in Bombay, in India. I come from a regular middle class family. My dad graduated out of medical school. He had a job at a clinic, and it was not a very well paying job. I mean, he could make ends meet barely. And my mom was still in dental school. So they moved into this northern suburb, like in the middle of nowhere. The nearest bus stopped like a mile away, and it was gravel road to the home that they were in. It was an apartment complex that was just built. Not far from there, there was this fishing village, and one of the chiefs of the village heard that, oh, there is a doctor who's moved around, and they didn't have a doctor, so they came to my dad and they're like, hey, do you mind being the village doctor? And my dad was like, okay, I mean, I don't lose anything much. I'm traveling like 2 hours to make ends meet. I'll be here. And the deal they struck at that time was that until my dad's practicing in that village, his rent is going to be X and it's not going to change. Until date, it is that. Like his rent is like 1,000th of what people right next to him pay, right?
Pretty good deal.
Pretty good deal, right? But now it's no more a village. It's like a metropolis, right? So it's very different. But the old villagers, they're still there. Their families are still there, right? So over a period of like 20 years, when he practiced, he had those personal relations with all his patients. Like he got invited to weddings, to birthday parties, you know.
He was a part of the family.
He became part of the family. Like he's seen 3 4 generations of families right in that office, one after another, you know.
Yeah.
He's seen kids grow, get married, have kids. So that's what kind of pushed me to be that person, that become a part of that family. See your patient as if they are your family, and it makes a difference. I would see him take house calls at 3 a.m. I've seen parents carry their kids and knock on our door at like 2 a.m. asking for help, and he would help. So that changes on how you look at
Yeah.
medicine growing up. And I think those are the foundations that help me build my thought process and kind of call it westernize it to fit the society over here.
That's a completely different, like, I think as a somebody who wants to be a doctor, I wanted to be a doctor. That's the type of doctor.
Yeah.
If you're not getting in it for the money here in this, you know, in the Western world, and you're getting in it to like serve and help people, that's kind of the ideal vision of how your life would play out.
Yeah. So I'm very grateful for the experience that I had, and I hope that I can pass that through to other people, and I hope I can change people to adopt that mentality and see that yes, it is fulfilling. And also financially, it's not that bad. Like, yeah, you're not going to drive a Lamborghini, but you live a comfortable, fulfilled life, you know.
Yeah.
So I hope I can inspire more people.
And so the difference between a Lamborghini and fulfilled life is essentially, connect the dots there for me. Is it because you're not going to be recommending certain services that aren't the best fit for that patient anymore? Where's the gap between the people that are driving the Lamborghinis versus the ones that are not, but serving families in a way that you just explained?
So not every decision is going to be driven by what's best for me to make money right now.
Got it.
All right. It's more for the long run. So growth is much slower, but once it's there, it stays.
Yeah.
It's stable. I've met doctor or dentists who are like, oh, and this is their brag, I do 100 veneers a month. They've built their practice around something that's purely cosmetic. The difference over there is when a patient comes into my practice asking for veneers, I talk more people out of getting veneers than actually doing veneers, because then I tell them this is what it is like. This is what will happen if you get veneers today. 10 years from today, 20 years from today, 30 years from today. This is what you're signing up for life, right?
Yeah.
Whilst as a doctor, someone could choose not to tell the entire story and let the patient get what they want because they came in asking for that. And I can assure you, most patients have no clue what they're signing up for just because they saw it on Instagram or on TikTok that, hey, this is the cool thing to do. This is the rave. I want to be a part of it. I want to do this.
Yeah.
So I think once you start educating them from a perspective of this is what you're getting, you'll truly know that a lot of cosmetic dentistry, quote unquote cosmetic dentistry, uh, is not what you want to do.
You're really, you have a message that's kind of going against the grain.
Yes, yes, 100%.
How long until you think you're going to fulfill your vision of the type of business you want to truly create?
That's happened today, right? I've already created the business that I want. I think the question more is when does my organization become the Mayo Clinic for Dentistry?
Yeah.
And
Sorry,
that
that
question,
was
yeah,
that's the correct question I was
yeah.
trying to get to.
And I don't know the answer to that question. It may never happen in my lifetime. Like the Mayo Clinic as we see it today is evolution of 100 years.
Yeah.
The Mayo brothers are not here anymore,
Yeah.
but their vision is alive and kicking and running. So I hope that it happens in my lifetime. I hope that I can see it happen. If not, I hope that I've inspired enough people to carry the torch forward.
Yeah.
So yeah, I would love to see it happen.
Who are you outside of this vision that you are setting into motion?
Who am I outside of that? That's a very interesting question. I don't know the answer to that.
You're like, I am only a dentist and
No,
business owner.
right. So yeah, outside of dentistry, what do I like to do? I think I'm a geek at heart. So I have a gaming group. So we play board games, we play computer games. I love to travel. My passion is cooking. That's where I express my creativity. So whenever I travel to a country, I'll take a cooking class.
Pick up something.
Yeah, I'll pick up
and
something over there.
What's your favorite dish to cook?
I
Everything.
cannot answer that question. It's too
Everything.
hard. Everything. I'll mix cuisines, you know. So I went to Italy and I learned how to make pasta the way pasta is supposed to be made, like the most basic ingredients, you know.
Yeah.
And then if you travel enough, you'll see a lot of common threads amongst food. And then you start to mix things together, you know. So from India, I can do like a paneer tikka masala pasta.
Oh, fun.
Or something like that, where it tingles your tongue and your mind, like, oh, what am I eating? Like, what happened here? You know, I actually pissed one person off where I said, I'll make pasta and I'll serve it with chopsticks, and they were like, oh, how can you do that? I'm like,
Easily like this. Watch.
yeah, just watch.
That's fun.
So
What
that's
countries are in your bucket list that you haven't visited yet?
every single country on the face of the planet, right?
You wanna
I
travel
want to
all.
travel everywhere. I want to travel everywhere. But yeah, like top on the list, I want to do Japan. I want to do the South African safari, or yeah, so like a lot of things.
What's your favorite place you've already been to?
Tough to pick one. I've had a lot of interesting experiences, you know. One experience was I was cooking with the village chief in Panama, you know. So that was an experience in itself, you know.
Yeah.
There's one experience where I was dancing like at 1 a.m. in Cartagena in the middle of the night where they had the street festival.
Wow.
So I've had experiences, so it's hard to pick what's your favorite
everywhere,
place.
yeah.
Every place has
You
its...
don't do just the typical touristy things when you go, it sounds like.
Yeah, a little bit of sprinkle of that because, you know,
You got to check
you
it
got to
out.
do it,
Yeah.
or you got to do some things.
Yeah.
But outside of that, like most of my trips are very impromptu, where the trip is planned, where I know that, okay, for a week I'm going to be in Panama. But what I'm going to do in Panama, I don't figure that out now. I go there, I talk with the locals, I speak to the locals, what is the cool thing, or hey, this is what I like to do, and then I kind of
You let the country
plan.
speak to you and tell you
Exactly,
what to do.
exactly. Because sitting away, it's kind of difficult to
Yeah.
figure out, you know, what's good. Because at the end of the day, TripAdvisor or Google is going to tell you a certain story,
I agree.
which may not be the local story.
Yeah.
So I like to see the country from the locals' perspective, you know, and it's always fun. So yeah, I've had very interesting stories wherever I've been.
I love that. I love
Yeah.
that. Your yearbook, your scrapbook would look very fun if you put one together, I'm
Yes, it's
sure.
going to be very fun. Like, so for example, one of the most memorable trips was 2023 August. It was my birthday, and I'm like, I'm going to treat myself. I planned a culinary trip to Bangkok and Chiang Mai. So the idea was every day I had a Michelin star experience.
Oh, wow.
So at night it was Michelin star experiences, and during the day I would just like walk the roads, eat at like a truck stop or something like that, where my morning meals were like $2 and my evening meals were like $200.
Oh, well. You
And,
set a
and
balance.
I had to balance my budget, right? So the idea was it was completely culinary focused. So like I was either hole in the wall places, trying out things, doing cooking classes, and on the other side, having a completely different experience on what food can be
Yeah.
from a German's perspective, from an Indian's perspective, from a Thai perspective, from an Indonesian's
You
perspective.
sort of show the hole in the wall versus the
So
five-star
fine,
Michelin. Yeah. Did you
exactly.
have any that were like similar in terms of like the quality or taste of the food?
No, it was just all over the place.
Okay.
Completely. So like I went to this German place called Suring. It's twin chefs who own the place. And that was a funny story where, I'm primarily vegetarian. I flex a little bit here and there, but for all the Michelin stars, when I made the reservations, I said I want a vegetarian experience. So I'm in that German place. They get started, Suring, amazing host, and then he brings the menu and he's like, "Today we have an add-on," and he explained to me the add-ons, and one was a currywurst, and I'll do a good hot dog or a good sausage. And I'm like, yeah, I'll try the currywurst. And he's like, yeah, we have a vegetarian version of it. I'm like, no, 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 I want the
The original.
Berliner, the
Yeah.
original currywurst that you said is imported from Berlin that
Yeah.
the chef has. And they're like, but that's pork. I'm like, yeah, I understand.
I'm going to break my rules just
Yeah,
for you.
just for this, right? So I felt the atmosphere changed a little bit
Yeah.
because they thought I was this food critic who's kind of pushing their limits or something. So it was very interesting because like
Yeah.
they're like surrounding, like, oh, are you okay? Oh, do you want a picture with the chefs? I'm like, yeah, 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 let's do it. So I kind of went in the back, had a picture. So it was a lot of fun. But yeah, they catered the entire menu, German cuisine, to make it vegetarian.
Yeah.
And I was licking the plates off, like there was nothing on the plate, and that was amazing.
They were like, he's going to give us a good
Yeah,
review.
like, and this is strictly my imaginative mind in the shower running as to what happened, but who knows.
That's
Yeah.
hilarious.
So yeah, that was a lot of fun.
I love that. So just really quickly though, the hole in the wall places, were there any places that you were like, even though I only paid $2 for it, it really competed with the $200 meal I had? I know it would be a completely different experience.
Yeah. The flavor profiles, yes. So like we went to this one river market, a very famous river market. A lot of people do that tour from Bangkok. But my guide being local, and I kind of like explained to her that, hey, don't take me to the tourist traps. Like
Yeah.
take me where you would eat, where you would
When your
come
family
here.
comes, yeah.
So she took me to like these corner places, and it was like just a bowl of noodle soup, right?
Yeah.
50 cents or dollar, whatever. And it was mind blowing. It was just a cup of soup with noodles and spice levels, however you wanted. Great flavors. Loved the food. So
Yeah.
yeah, there were places where the taste was just so amazing. It's
Yeah.
like, yeah, this is authentic, and this is something that people should definitely do.
I love that.
So
You need to create your own little, offshoot channel.
right.
These are the places to go
You're
to.
right. Like my Google Maps, that's how I save things. Like this is
There we
where I've
go.
been. So like, yeah, if you see my Google Maps, like that's the
All over
channel,
the
right?
place. I love that.
Yeah.
Okay, so you told me a little bit about the future. You told me a little bit about the past and the present. In terms of like two things that you wish more dentists would consider as they're building out their vision or their future business, what are a couple things that you say often to other practice owners?
I think the biggest thing is two big things. One is we are not taught how to be leaders or how to be good leaders, right? And that is a quality or a skill that can be learned. Some people have it natively.
Yeah.
Most people don't, and it is a skill that can be learned. So that would be my first advice to any dentist: that just go down to basic leadership books.
What's your favorite?
Simon Sinek,
You
hands
didn't even
down.
have to think about
Yeah,
that.
he's the foundation of my leadership, with Brene Brown and Adam Grant. So like those three people,
Yeah.
I've read their works in and out multiple times. I think they're good, solid, scientifically based, philosophically based leadership books that you should read through.
Okay.
So that's kind of one, be a good leader. Because at the end of the day, as a dentist and as a business owner, you're wearing two different hats in one place. With the patient, you're an advisor, you are truly a doctor.
Yeah.
But when you're not with the patient, you have to change that hat. And many people don't have that second hat and they keep being that doctor, and you cannot be. You need to be that leader
Yeah.
because your team looks upon you. They want that guidance, right? So that's one. And the second is just skills of what a business should be like. How do you read financials? How do you read a balance sheet? What's a profit and loss statement? Uh, just making good business decisions. What should be the next acquisition versus the shiny object syndrome? So, basic business skills and leadership skills are two things that I would advise any dentist to go to. In any dental school, this is not taught. Like, we are taught how to be good doctors. Some business or some schools may have a course where there is a little bit of sprinkling of that, but it's truly not taught in dental schools. Like, how do loans work? Like, so many kids graduate and they're like, oh, I don't think I can buy a practice or I can start a practice because I have this loan. And that's not true. You can.
Yeah.
And they don't know it because they're just not taught to them. You know,
Where can they get this info from? Is it self?
I
You gotta like go do the research.
yeah, I'm trying to put up a course where it's a conversation with lawyers, with CPAs, with bankers, where it comes from a perspective of just strictly purely education
Yeah.
of what can be done. But yeah, there are certain business schools, I believe, business schools or courses that people can avail of that at least teach you this.
Okay.
Cost of entry is a little high, so unless you are very serious about it,
Yeah.
a student may not want to do it. You know,
You know, and I think the biggest thing with all people, not just business owners, is you don't know what you don't know.
exactly,
So you don't even know the right questions to ask because you don't even
exactly,
know what's possible.
yeah,
Right?
100%. Yep, you hit it right on the head.
Yeah.
You don't know what you don't
And
know.
then somebody says something, or they listen to an interview,
And
they're like, wait, that's possible?
yeah,
Tell me more.
exactly, yeah. So I hope that there is a trustworthy, centralized repository of information,
Kind of like a Mayo Clinic for dentists.
kind of like that. Something like that, you know. You Google it and just comes up first page. How do I buy a practice? Zzz.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then to kind of wrap things up, if you had one piece of advice, whether it's to patients, whether it's to practice owners, whether it's to the business community, or just the world at large, what would that message be?
Like a generalized message to whole humanity.
Yes. Yes.
Don't forget that you're a human and the other person also is a human. So treat the other person just like you want to be treated.
Do you think that's not happening?
A lot of it is not happening.
Why do you think that is?
I have no idea. I have no idea. I mean, you look around, and I think especially after COVID, things, or at least I see it more, things kind of completely changed, and everyone's gone into this bubble of me versus us, right? Humans are not meant to be individualistic. Humans are social beings. We need company for survival. That's how our physiology is too. So if we start thinking from an individualistic perspective, it not only divides society, but it also is detrimental to your health. Versus if you think us or as a community, it's what we are built for. So
Stop taking the focus on just ourselves.
exactly, think of the larger picture. It's not about you. You are a tiny speck in the entire universe. Like even the Earth is a tiny speck in the entire universe.
Agreed.
So keep that in perspective, and think about community. Leave the world in a better place that you found it. And that'll just bring peace and joy to everyone.
I love that.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for being on the show.
No, thank you. Thank you for having me. This was awesome. I love the conversation.